My name was Muhammad. I was a prosecutor, respected, ambitious, a voice for justice in a city that pulses with diversity and contradiction. As I stood in that New York courtroom, surrounded by the weight of expectation, a darkness nestled in my heart, feeding on the disconnect between my faith and my soul's longing. I wore a mask of conviction, but beneath it I felt an emptiness that gnawed at me day by day. One fateful afternoon, under the immense pressure of a closing argument, everything changed. My body could no longer bear the burden of my internal conflict. It gave in, and in that moment, I slipped into an abyss. I didn't just lose consciousness. I transcended reality. In the shadows, a light broke through. A radiant figure stepped forth and called me by name. It shattered the very foundation of who I thought I was: Jesus. His voice pierced the veil of my confusion, unveiling a truth more profound than any religion could contain. I stood at a crossroads of divine revelation, where the chains of expectation fell away, and a startling clarity enveloped me. I was shown a spiritual war, forging through tradition, deceit, and societal constructs designed to keep me shackled. In that moment, I grasped that my struggle was not just personal. It was a universal battle for truth. Returning to my reality was a tumultuous journey. The man who left that courtroom was no longer the man who returned. Each step I took felt like a betrayal to my community, my family, yet I knew I was being called to something greater. I delved deep into religious texts, searching for answers, clinging to the newfound hope and peace that Jesus offered. As the fear of loss crept in, I was destined to be a messenger of this revelation, to illuminate darkened paths and spark the awakening within others. As I speak to you today, I am filled with urgency. There are countless souls yearning for truth, grappling with a silence that demands to be broken. I invite you to join me on this journey of faith, to explore the profound realities that transcend our perceptions, and to awaken the divine purpose within you. Before we dive into this story, I want to hear from you. Where are you watching from? What time is it there? Share in the comments. Your voice matters. And if you love Jesus and want to uncover the revelations ahead, subscribe to Truth from Beyond. Together we will traverse the shadows and emerge into the light of His love. As I stood in the tense courtroom in New York, the weight of my role as a prosecutor felt heavier than ever. My name is Amir, and I've spent years fighting for justice within a complex legal system. Yet I couldn't shake the feeling of a spiritual void that had crept into my life. Surrounded by a rich tapestry of cultural and religious diversity, I often felt like an outsider, caught between my professional obligations and the unspoken expectations of my community. The pressure to adhere to societal norms weighed heavily on my heart, creating a dissonance that left me questioning my beliefs and purpose. That day, as I delivered my closing arguments, something shifted within me. The urgency of what I was saying felt intertwined with a deeper calling I had been struggling to recognize. I was at the intersection of justice and truth, yet even amidst the courtroom's tension, I felt an unsettling emptiness. The people in attendance watched intently, but one thought consumed me. Was I truly serving justice or merely playing a role in a system riddled with deception? It was then that a fateful moment occurred, a moment that plunged me into a near-death experience I could never have prepared for. I felt a sudden jolt, an overwhelming wave of dizziness that pulled me into darkness as if the very world around me had vanished. In that void, I encountered Jesus, a figure of immense light and compassion. His presence enveloped me, filling the emptiness that had consumed my spirit. As he stood before me, I discerned an urgency in his eyes, an invitation to see beyond the physical realm. Jesus began to share revelations that illuminated the truths I had been blind to. Truths about the hidden agendas of the elite who perpetuate division and conflict among us. The spiritual war we find ourselves in was not just abstract. It was palpable, raging within and around us. Through our interaction, I gained insights into the manipulation of societal narratives, how those in power use deception to maintain their control. I saw the fractures within communities, the fear that keeps people from embracing love and understanding. I felt the intense weight of these revelations, understanding that my role in the courtroom could no longer be just about enforcing laws. It needed to be a fight for justice rooted in compassion and truth. I witnessed the struggle of countless individuals lost in a world where the deception of the elite would lead them away from genuine connection and authenticity. When I finally returned to consciousness, I knew I could not go back to my old life unchanged. The fear of confronting my colleagues and community loomed over me, heavy and foreboding. Would they accept this new version of me, the one who had glimpsed the deeper truths of faith and justice? The risk of losing their approval gnawed at me, but the urgent call to share these revelations was a fire in my heart, one that I couldn't ignore. I felt compelled to step into this new chapter with courage, dedicating myself to the truth I had been shown, ready to advocate for those who felt trapped within the confines of deception. Every day since, I have held onto the hope that my journey could inspire others to awaken as I have. I seek connection with fellow seekers, sharing stories of transformation and courage amidst the spiritual war that rages on. Yet even as I rally against the societal norms that attempt to bind me, the thought of my family's judgment remains a shadow in my mind. I understand that the fight for truth may lead to alienation, but the light of Jesus continues to guide me, urging me to embrace this awakening and share it widely. The path is uncertain and fraught with challenges, but I am prepared to walk it, ready to face whatever comes with the genuine hope of a world united under the truth. As I stood in the courtroom, the weight of my responsibilities pressed heavily on my shoulders. My name is Muhammad, and at 32 years old, I've dedicated my career to being a prosecutor, someone who seeks justice within a legal system that can sometimes feel more like a game of chess than a pursuit of truth. On the surface, I projected professionalism and confidence, embodying the values I was taught as a practicing Muslim. But underneath it all, I battled an internal turmoil. There was a gnawing emptiness in my spirit, a disconnect between my religious obedience and the deeper spiritual fulfillment I craved. Each day, I would don my suit, prepare my arguments, and step into the tension-filled space of the courtroom, where lives hung in the balance. Yet as I engaged in the daily grind, I couldn't shake the feeling that something essential was missing. My prayers, once a source of comfort, began to feel hollow, rituals lacking the depth and connection I yearned for. I found myself questioning whether I was truly living in accordance with my faith or simply going through the motions. This anxiety simmered beneath my composed exterior, creating a profound sense of conflict within me. It was during a particularly stressful case that everything changed. I was driving home late one night, replaying the events of the day when a sudden collision thrust my world into chaos. The accident happened in a flash, and I felt my consciousness slipping away. In that critical moment, I was transported into darkness, a sense of weightlessness surrounding me. It was there, in that void, that I encountered Jesus. His presence was overwhelming, a light filled with love and compassion that pierced through the despair I had been feeling. As he approached, I felt an inexplicable connection, almost as if the weight of my doubts was being lifted. In those moments spent in his presence, Jesus began to reveal to me profound truths about the hidden agendas that permeate our world. He illuminated the deception that kept people divided, teaching me how the elite manipulate systems of power, sowing discord while distracting us from the truth. I witnessed the struggles of countless individuals caught in cycles of fear and misunderstanding, yearning for spiritual connection but often led astray by societal norms. The urgency of this revelation struck me hard. I realized that my inner conflict was not just about my personal faith, but part of a larger spiritual war against lies and manipulation. As I returned to consciousness, The weight of what I had experienced settled upon me like a heavy mantle. I was changed, transformed by the revelations about the importance of authenticity and the need to fight against the systemic deception that binds us. But I was also left grappling with fear. Fear of rejection from my family, my colleagues, and my community. Would they understand the awakening I had gone through? Could I stand firm in my beliefs even when the world around me resisted? The call to share my experience, to advocate for truth, grew stronger with each passing day, urging me to venture into the unknown and confront both my fears and the spiritual war that awaited. As I began my days, cloaked in the responsibilities of a prosecutor in New York, an unsettling disconnect settled within me. My name is Muhammad, and I had always prided myself on my dedication to justice. Yet as I knelt in prayer, I couldn't shake the gnawing feeling that something was amiss. My faith had been my guiding light, but now, those prayers felt empty, as if I was merely reciting words without meaning. The deeper I delved into my responsibilities, the more I questioned the very foundation upon which my beliefs rested. I became increasingly consumed by the nature of truth within a legal system entwined with hidden agendas and societal deception. The unsettling thoughts followed me into my sleep, where I found myself plagued by dreams that reflected my inner turmoil. In these dreams, I wandered through dark hallways, never finding the light I desperately sought. I stood before figures that represented authority, yet their faces contorted into masks of manipulation and control. I could hear whispers of doubt echoing in the corners of my mind, taunting me and reminding me of my perceived failures. I would wake in a cold sweat, heart racing, feeling an urgency to confront the aspects of my life that felt stifling. Then came the moment that changed everything. I was involved in a severe car accident on my way to court, and in that instant, my reality shifted dramatically. A profound darkness surrounded me, and I felt myself teetering between life and death. In that void, I encountered Jesus. His presence was unlike anything I had ever experienced, a guiding light that pierced through the depths of my despair. As he looked into my soul, I felt a wave of understanding wash over me. Jesus began to reveal truths that shattered the illusions I had been living under. He spoke to me about the hidden agendas of the elite, exposing the deceptions that perpetuate division and fear within society. I saw how the strings of power manipulated the masses, and how the very systems I tried to uphold often worked against the principles of justice. The spiritual war being waged was not just a battle for souls, it was a fight for the truth that resides in each of us. Each revelation that unfolded left me breathless, and I felt an overwhelming sense of responsibility to share this knowledge with others. No longer could I remain silent in the face of such stark realities. When I returned to consciousness, the weight of Jesus' message clung to me as if it were tattooed on my soul. I felt compelled to act, yet the fear of rejection gnawed at my insides. Would my family accept this transformation? Would my colleagues see me as a traitor to our shared traditions? The thought of walking away from my former life began to feel both terrifying and necessary. With every passing moment, the urgency to advocate for the truth intensified, urging me to step into the light of my awakening. My journey had just begun, and I felt a fierce determination rise within me, a conviction to confront the spiritual war head-on and embrace the mission that lay ahead. The pressures of the courtroom often felt insurmountable, and it was during one of those high-stakes moments that everything changed. My name is Muhammad, and as a prosecutor, I've always strived for justice within a legal system that can be unforgiving. On that fateful day, as I stood before the judge presenting my closing arguments, the weight of the world seemed to collapse around me. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest, every word I spoke tinged with an urgency that I couldn't explain. Just as I was reaching the climax of my argument, a wave of dizziness swept over me, and before I knew it, I collapsed in the courtroom. Suddenly, I found myself in a dark, oppressive space, one that felt alien yet oddly familiar. I was suspended in nothingness, a weight pressing down on me as I tried to comprehend what was happening. It was in that void of uncertainty that I first saw him, Jesus, a radiant figure whose light cut through the darkness like a beacon. As he approached, my heart flipped with fear and awe. Muhammad. He called me by name, and the sound of it reverberated through my very being, filling me with a sense of purpose I had been desperately missing. In those moments, Jesus began to unveil profound truths. I felt the veil of deception lifted from my eyes, revealing the intricacies of the spiritual war that rages not just within our hearts, but throughout society. He showed me how the elite manipulate events and narratives, weaving a hidden agenda that keeps people in the dark and fighting amongst themselves. The visions I experienced illuminated the struggles of humanity, the wars, the division, and the persistent quest for power at the expense of compassion. I understood then that my role as a prosecutor extended beyond the courtroom. It was about advocating for justice that is rooted in love, rather than fear and conflict. As I listened to him, the weight of my old life pressed heavily upon my shoulders. Jesus' revelations challenged everything I thought I knew about my faith and purpose. The hypocrisy that often cloaked societal norms struck me with a painful clarity. I had lived my life adhering to rules and rituals, but in that encounter, I realized those can sometimes push us further from the essence of spiritual truth. The urgency of awakening surged within me, pushing me to confront not only the societal deceptions, but my own fears and doubts about my path. When I awoke from that experience, the world looked different. The revelations I had been gifted clung to me like a second skin, transforming my perspective on faith, justice, and love. I felt a newfound urgency to share what I had learned, to help others see through the deceptions that plagued our realities. But even as I prepared to embrace this calling, the shadows of fear cast over me. How would my colleagues react? What about my family? I grappled with the need to be true to my convictions versus the desire to maintain my relationships. Yet I knew, deep down, that the spiritual war one was now aware of demanded my voice be heard. I was ready to face these challenges head-on, fully aware that the path to truth would not be easy, yet determined to illuminate the darkness for others seeking the same awakening. Returning to life after that fateful accident felt like stepping into a new world, one filled with both light and shadow. My name is Muhammad, and as a prosecutor I was steeped in the pursuit of justice, yet my encounter with Jesus had fundamentally altered my understanding of what that meant. The moment I opened my eyes in the hospital, I felt an overwhelming sense of urgency. The revelations I had received in the darkness now clashed with the reality I had known, and with that came an internal conflict that demanded my attention. My faith, once a source of strength, was now twisted into a complex web of doubt and guilt. While I felt a profound connection to Jesus and the truths he revealed, the implications of that revelation tore at my very being. I thought of my family and colleagues, people who measured worth through adherence to tradition. How would they react to my transformation? The fear of their rejection consumed me. It felt as though I was betraying them by embracing a truth that was more liberating than any I had ever known. The tension weighed heavy on my heart as I grappled with feelings of betrayal, wondering if it was right to pursue a spiritual path that could lead to my alienation. In the weeks that followed, those feelings of isolation grew sharper. Conversations with my friends and family became strained, tinged with thinly veiled judgments about my evolving beliefs. Each time I spoke of my experience, I could hear the skepticism wrapped in their responses. "You've lost your way," they would say, their voices thick with disappointment. I felt like an imposter navigating a world that once felt secure. The hostility I faced only deepened my crisis of faith, blurring the line between the urgency to share my story and the fear of losing the bonds that had once defined my life. My dreams became restless reflections of this internal turmoil. Night after night, vivid imagery replayed the moments of my accident and my encounter with Jesus. I found myself lost in darkened streets where shadows whispered the doubts I wrestled with in daylight. There were moments of clarity too, where revelations would shine brightly, urging me to confront the deeper societal issues surrounding me. I saw the manipulation at play, how the elite fostered division, using deception to maintain control over innocent lives. This knowledge ignited a fire within me, urging me to speak out against the hidden agendas that sought to keep us blinded to the truth. Despite the potential backlash, the call to action grew louder. I knew the spiritual war we faced wasn't just mine. It belonged to every individual yearning for awakening. I felt compelled to engage with others who had walked similar paths, seeking connections with those who could understand. The weight of my mission settled heavily upon me, yet each conversation became a beacon of hope. Sharing my testimony could be a transformative force, not just for me, but for those still ensnared in the shadows of deception. I stood at the brink of a critical decision. Was I ready to step boldly into this new reality and face the consequences? Knowing that the fight for truth was far more essential than the comforts of familiarity? In the quiet hours of the night, when the world was still and my thoughts were loudest, I felt the weight of isolation bearing down on me. I'm Muhammad, a prosecutor in New York, navigating a career that demands integrity and strength. Yet amidst the pressures of the legal system, I was haunted by a yearning for truth that seemed just out of reach. My faith, once a solid foundation, now felt like a gilded cage. I could sense an emptiness creeping in, and the fear of confronting that emptiness also terrified me. It was during these restless nights that I began to secretly explore the Bible, seeking answers to questions I could no longer ignore. Each page I turned and every video I watched of conversion testimonies brought both solace and anxiety. Listening to others share their journeys towards faith and acceptance of Jesus ignited a flame of hope in me. Yet I remained enveloped in the shadows of fear. The potential backlash from my family and colleagues loomed like a specter, threatening to unravel everything I had worked for. The tension between my desire for spiritual awakening and my obligation to adhere to the norms of my community created a storm within me, leaving me feeling even more fragmented. While the world outside continued its relentless pace, I found refuge within the supportive communities I began to connect with online. These groups offered a safe space where I could express my doubts and yearnings without the judgment I feared in my everyday life. I felt understood among fellow seekers who, like me, were navigating their own spiritual wars. We shared stories of our struggles against the hidden agendas often imposed by the elite, manipulations that kept us from experiencing authentic connection with Jesus and each other. Hearing the truths through their experiences deepened my resolve to uncover my own. Then, there was that moment in my solitude when everything changed. As I sat quietly in my room during a prayer session, I suddenly felt that familiar rush of warmth, a presence I could only describe as divine. In that instant, I felt Jesus with me, inviting me to step beyond my fears. He revealed insights that pierced my soul, showing me the layers of deception that permeate our society. Striking visions unfolded before my mind's eye, revealing the manipulation of narratives that foster division and conflict among us. The urgency of his call resonated within me, igniting a fire that demanded I confront the truth, no matter the cost. Once I awoke from that moment, the weight of my experience settled around me like a cloak. I realized I could no longer live in fear or silence. The truths I had absorbed demanded action. Despite my trepidation, I felt compelled to share my journey and the insights I had gained, insights that could potentially awaken others still trapped in darkness. My commitment to act was strengthened by a burgeoning sense of purpose. I understood that my testimony could serve as a beacon of hope for those on their paths toward awakening. It was time to break free from the chains of deception, to stand firmly in the light of truth, and to inspire others to do the same, no matter the opposition I might face. As I directed my thoughts towards this mission, I felt an unwavering conviction that I was ready to embrace whatever lay ahead. In the wake of my near-death experience, a profound realization emerged. My journey was a divine calling to share the truth that had been revealed to me. I am Muhammad, a prosecutor in New York, And while I've dedicated my professional life to seeking justice, my encounter with Jesus revealed deeper layers of truth beneath the surface of our society. It became clear that the revelations I received were not just for my own enlightenment. They were meant to be shared with others who, like me, have been searching for clarity in a world clouded by deception. As I reflected on the details of that experience, I felt a renewed sense of purpose brewing within me. Jesus had shown me the inner workings of the spiritual war that we all face. The deceptions perpetuated by the elite, the manipulations woven into the fabric of our institutions, and the hidden agendas that fuel division were now all too apparent. I understood that the fight for truth wasn't merely a personal struggle. It was a collective quest, a call to arms for those who yearned for awakening. This truth propelled me forward, urging me to voice the truths I had discovered, even with the potential risks. The fear of rejection weighed heavily on my heart. I had spent years cultivating a reputation based on adherence to the norms of my profession and culture. The prospect of facing hostility from colleagues and family terrified me, yet the urgency of my mission eclipsed that fear. I remembered Scripture and how often Jesus embraced those who were cast aside, revealing love and compassion to the most unlikely individuals. My heart swelled with the realization that I too could extend that love, even if it meant stepping into uncomfortable territory. With each passing day, I began reaching out, seeking community with those who shared similar experiences. I found spaces filled with seekers, people asking the hard questions I had struggled with for so long. Together we delved into discussions about the reclamation of truth and the importance of questioning the narratives imposed upon us. I felt a sense of belonging among those who understood the weight of the spiritual war we were fighting. They inspired me to embrace my story, to confront the hesitations that held me back, and to share the transformative revelations of Jesus with the world. I knew I stood at a crossroads, a place where faith and courage intertwined. Speaking my truth was no longer just a personal endeavor. It felt like a sacred duty. The thought of helping others break free from the chains of deception filled me with resolve, even as I grappled with the uncertainty of what lay ahead. The awakening around me was palpable, igniting not only my spirit, but also the spirits of those eager to create change. With every encounter, every shared story, I recognized the power of transformation through our collective journey. It was time to step into the light, illuminate the truth, and encourage others to join in the fight against the hidden agendas that sought to hold us captive. Leaving behind my old life felt like breaking free from invisible chains that had bound me for too long. I am Mohammed, a prosecutor in New York, and for years I had been entrenched in a system that emphasized conformity and obedience to tradition. But after my near-death experience, where I encountered Jesus, everything changed. His revelations illuminated a path that demanded I step into a new world, one filled with hope and the promise of spiritual liberation. With a heavy heart, I made the courageous decision to adopt a new name, one that symbolized this transformation and commitment to my newfound mission. This journey hasn't been without its challenges. As I began sharing my experiences and beliefs, I faced hostility from those who felt threatened by my awakening. The elite within my community clung to the hidden agenda that allowed them to maintain control through deception, perpetuating a culture of fear that discouraged inquiry and dissent. I could feel their judgment, an oppressive force that weighed heavily on my spirit. Desiring to spread the message of Jesus often felt like stepping into a minefield, where my every word could be misinterpreted, leading to additional isolation. Yet, with every meeting and discussion with others who were also seeking the truth, my resolve grew stronger. I connected with fellow seekers, individuals who shared their stories of awakening, and we became a community defined by the hope we wanted to share with the world. Each testimony offered insight into the spiritual war we were all waging, reminding us that our fight was not solely against outside forces, but also within ourselves. We understood that confronting the deception in our lives and societies required courage and unity. As I immersed myself in my new life, the urge to evangelize became an intrinsic part of who I was. I committed myself to help others recognize the hidden truths obscured by societal norms. The awakening I experienced was not just for my benefit. It felt like a calling, an obligation to stand against the forces that sought to divide and conquer. Yet, the haunting fear of rejection from my family and friends lingered. Would they see my new mission as a betrayal? How could I bridge the gap between my past life and my current convictions? Despite these fears, I pressed forward, driven by an urgency that felt divinely appointed. With each story I shared, an invisible chain seemed to break, not only for myself but for those willing to listen. The more I spoke about Jesus and the truths he revealed, the more I witnessed others awaken to their own journeys. I longed to see a world where love and compassion triumphed over deception and division, eager to do my part in igniting that change. As I faced this new chapter of my life, the path was still fraught with uncertainty, but my heart was ready to embrace this mission fully, eager to forge ahead into the light of awakening with courage and conviction. Years after my life-altering experience, I found myself fully integrated into a new Christian community, discovering a profound sense of belonging and purpose. My name is Muhammad, and the journey that began with a seemingly simple accident had transformed into a pathway of spiritual awakening. The moment I encountered Jesus during my near-death experience left an indelible mark on my soul. In his presence, I was shown unimaginable truths, the manipulations of the elite, the hidden agendas that dictate societal norms, and the enduring spiritual war being fought within each of us. Integrating into this community was not easy. Although my heart yearned for connection, I carried the emotional scars of estrangement from my family and the nagging fear of judgment from those who once knew me. I could still feel the weight of their disapproval, echoing in the back of my mind whenever I shared my testimony. Yet with every gathering, every shared story of transformation, I began to heal. I found solace in the stories of others who had walked similar paths, each of us battling our inner demons and societal pressures. Together we tackled the tougher questions about our faith, unearthing the common threads that united us in this quest for truth. Amid the laughter and the tears, the discussions often returned to the revelations Jesus shared with me. His voice rang clear in my heart, urging me to be bold in sharing my insights. I spoke of the hidden layers of deception that permeate our world, exposing how fear and division are fueled by those in power. I felt a renewed sense of clarity each time I shared my story, invigorated by the understanding that my experience wasn't just for me. It was meant to inspire others still lost in the shadows. These gatherings turned into a safe haven for everyone involved, a place where fear could be dismantled and hope could flourish. As I navigated these new waters, I also remained keenly aware of the tension that simmered within me concerning my family. I held on to the hope that one day they would come to understand my awakening. The thought of reconnecting filled me with longing, but it was also paired with the fear of facing their disappointment. I tried reaching out occasionally, sharing snippets of my newfound beliefs, but I was often met with silence or dismissive responses. This unresolved longing weighed on me, reminding me that the road to acceptance is fraught with challenges. Nevertheless, I knew I had to continue my mission, driven by a passion to raise awareness about the truth we often overlook. Through all of this, the urgency of the spiritual war we face in our world continued to rise. As I saw how easily the elite manipulate narratives to suit their agendas, a fire ignited within me. I began participating in outreach programs, seeking to spread the teachings of Jesus in communities where people felt trapped by their own circumstances. I learned to communicate the message of hope effectively, showing others that awakening is possible, even in the darkest of times. With every life touched, I felt the power of community and love rise up against the forces of deception. The echoes of past struggles began to fade as the truth carved out a path for healing, urging me ever forward into the mission that felt so evidently clear. The journey ahead is uncertain, but my heart is steadfast, resolute in the belief that we can conquer this spiritual war together. As I entered the courtroom, the familiar weight of responsibility settled on my shoulders. I am Muhammad, a prosecutor in New York, known for my unwavering commitment to justice and my deep respect for the law. However, beneath this facade of professionalism, I faced a simmering conflict. In the hours leading up to critical closing arguments in a high-stakes case, I couldn't shake the spiritual emptiness that had taken root within me. The expectation to project strength and conviction felt at odds with the doubts swirling in my mind. It was a suffocating pressure, exacerbated by the cultural and religious expectations that dictated my life. As I presented my case, I felt as though I was sinking deeper into my internal struggle. My words echoed in the room, but my heart was heavy with questions that burned in my mind. I found myself grappling not only with the facts of the case before me, but also with the deeper truths of my own existence. My belief in the justice I sought felt increasingly undermined by a hidden agenda that pervaded the very systems I had dedicated my life to. It was during this tumultuous moment that everything changed. Just as I reached the climax of my argument, an overwhelming wave of dizziness washed over me, and I collapsed. The darkness enveloped me, and in that disorienting void, I suddenly found myself in a realm outside of time. It was here that I encountered Jesus. His radiant presence pierced the shadows, offering me a warmth that I had longed for, yet had never fully understood. As he looked deeply into my soul, a revelation unfolded, one that shattered everything I thought I knew about my life and the world around me. Jesus spoke to me, revealing insights about the spiritual war that is fought not just outwardly, but also within our hearts. He illuminated the layers of deception that hide the truth, truths that the elite work tirelessly to suppress. I saw visions of the manipulation by those in power, how their hidden agendas fueled division within society. Fear and strife were not merely products of circumstance. They were orchestrated to distract us from the simple truth of our shared humanity. In those moments, I felt a sense of urgency that was both terrifying and liberating. Jesus laid bare the deceptions that had kept me shackled and urged me to embrace an awakening that transcended the fears I had harbored for so long. The message was clear. True spiritual liberation begins with the courage to confront the painful truths we often avoid. When consciousness returned, a newfound clarity surged within me. The revelation I had received felt like a calling, a pressing need to share the truths I had been shown, despite the fear of rejection. I grappled with the daunting realization that following this path might lead to alienation from my family and community. Nonetheless, the urgency of my mission overshadowed my fears. I could no longer stand idly by while the spiritual war continued to rage around us, uprooting lives and perpetuating suffering. My heart felt as though it had been set ablaze, igniting a desire to encourage others to also seek the truth, to awaken to the realities behind the veils of deception. I knew I had to prepare to step into the light of this new path, ready to confront whatever challenges lay ahead. And now, as I share this journey with you, one that began in the depths of despair and culminated in a transformative encounter with Jesus, I must ask, have you ever felt a divine calling whispering in your heart? A recognition that beyond the mundane struggles of life, there exists a greater reality yearning for your awareness and participation? The veil of illusion that clouds our understanding isn't just a personal barrier. It is a collective struggle against an unseen spiritual war that beckons each of us to awaken and seek truth. As I reflect on my experiences, I realize that my story is but a small part of a grand narrative, one that invites us all to participate in the revelation of compassion, love, and unity amid chaos. The insights bestowed upon me were not solely for my benefit. They resonate universally, calling out to souls like yours who may be yearning for answers and seeking their place in this intricate tapestry of existence. We are interconnected, bound by the thread of truth, and each of us has a role in illuminating the darkness that surrounds us. I invite you now to share your own experiences or questions in the comments below. Have you too encountered moments that challenged your beliefs, ignited your spirit, or nudged you toward a deeper understanding? Your voice matters. and each story shared could be a light for someone else navigating their own shadows. And if this message has stirred something in your heart, please take a moment to subscribe to Truth from Beyond and activate the notification bell. Your support helps us continue to unravel these hidden truths and share new revelations that can lead to awakening and empowerment. What lies ahead may just change the way you see yourself and the world around you. Join me in our next video, where we'll explore the remarkable testimony of another soul whose journey into Christian faith exposed profound truths about love and acceptance. I'm Muhammad, and I appreciate your company on this journey towards enlightenment and understanding. Remember, as we seek truth, we become beacons of light for ourselves and others, igniting hope in an often darkened world.